I did not plan on reading this book, much less reviewing it. In fact, I picked my wife's copy off the shelf to give away at a White Elephant gift exchange because I thought it would be funny to give away a book titled A War of Gifts. I finished the book easily on the first half of a plane flight, and I was blown away. I mean, when I first read Ender's Game, I loved it. And then, like others, I read the sequels and I thought they sucked. And I think I eventually started to look back and think, in hindsight, maybe nostalgia had colored my view of Ender's Game. Maybe it wasn't as good as I'd remembered. But no. Ender's Game, A+. Ender's Shadow, A+. A War of Gifts, A++. Possibly better than Ender's Game, in my opinion. One Goodreads reviewer writes, "What is it with Orson Scott Card and Battle School? Nothing ever rings as true and as strong as when he takes his readers up to that spot." I completely agree. Somehow Card's writing thrives at Battle School, and A War of Gifts is no exception. Don't expect action. There are not interesting battles like there are in Ender's Game. There's not the zero-gravity laser tag. This is character interaction through and through. There is, of course, the War of Gifts, but it's literally kids giving each other gifts at Battle School and defying the authorities who have told them not to do this. In fact, this is a Christmas story. Ultimately, a rather wholesome one. At least as wholesome as a story about a bunch of genius children being abused by the military in order to save the planet from marauding aliens can be. And it's short, super short, 126 pages, and they're actually kind of small pages. There's no fat, there's no dithering, there's no room for Orson Scott Card to get weird. And on that note, let's address the bigoted elephant in the room. From 2009 to 2013, Orson Scott Card was a board director of the National Organization for Marriage, a group that campaigns against same-sex marriage, as well as against other LGBTQ rights. He has been vocally anti-gay and against same-sex marriage. Look, if you're like me, you're exhausted by all the scandals surrounding famous and many beloved authors. And for real, putting money in Card's pocket is indirectly funding hate. Let's be clear about that. But a book is not its author, and in my opinion, A War of Gifts is genuinely good, and I mean good in a moral sense. The story promotes empathy, understanding, and kindness. If you soured on Orson Scott Card because he's an asshole, or because the later Ender's books were disappointing, think again. Take a chance on A War of Gifts. It's packed with truthful character interactions and practically nothing else. There's no cartoon caricatures of heroes or villains. Everybody is simply a flawed human being doing their best with a tragic background, or even not a tragic background, just, they were raised by imperfect people themselves. It's a story that teaches humility and empathy by showing you reflections of yourself in the fanatic, in the cruel commander, in the genius, in the fool, in the homesick kid. It's a rebellion against authority, and it's a celebration of Christmas. Consider it the holiday episode of Battle School, but, actually good, unlike the Star Wars one. I guess there is sort of one cartoon hero in the book. My only criticism of A War of Gifts is that Ender himself is sort of relied on as something of a flawless hero. He sort of steps in at the end and saves the day. But that's a literary criticism, and I'm already over it. Look, the book is barely over 120 pages. It's an incredibly tightly told story. It had to wrap up one way or another. I thought the ending was still satisfying, but not everyone likes this book. The reviews on Goodreads I found to be surprisingly mixed. One reviewer writes, "Card seems to not be able to make up his mind what the message is supposed to be, and instead tries to cover all his bases. Should we admire Zek for what he believes? Mock him? Is Battle Station making the right choices and being secular? Or should they be allowing religious worship? Nothing's really answered." Another reviewer, somewhat contradictorily, writes, "I want a message from science fiction or fantasy books, but it felt like the author went on a little too much of the side of preaching, and it seemed like he was forcing his own personal opinion about religion on the reader." I completely disagree with both of these contradictory and mixed up opinions. The message, in my opinion, is that people are flawed and we should be compassionate with each other. There need not be any further message. I am utterly uninterested in whether or not Battle School should be secular. That's narrow and boring. I also disagree with the part about Card preaching. To me, the characters speak for themselves, and they speak truly. There is perhaps a suddenness to Zek's character arc that is a bit unrealistic, but I don't hate it. And I don't fault it in such a short book. The book could have been longer, I suppose, to address this issue, but I like short books, and this one is, in my opinion, just right. If you haven't read Ender's Game, it's a classic. I think you should read it. Get it from the library. You don't need to give Orson Scott Card a penny. And if you love Ender's Game, Ender's Shadow and A War of Gifts are both phenomenal. All three of them stand alone, although I can see that you might be a little bit lost, not sort of understanding the context of the universe if you dive right into A War of Gifts. Lastly, for science fiction fans in general, the Intergalactic Medicine Show was a magazine of science fiction and fantasy short stories created by Card, and in my opinion, it featured the best short stories. I liked it considerably more than more popular magazines such as Fantasy and Science Fiction or even Asimov's. And, best part, all of the past issues are completely free online. There's a Kindle version that you can download with a click. There's just a raw text version that you can read on your computer or your phone. And you can tell that there was passion and heart put into this magazine. The creators of it, the writers, the editors, are proud of what they did, and I think they should be. It's one of my favorite sources of science fiction short stories, and it's completely free. Yes, Orson Scott Card, of course, made money off of it when it ran. Well, not enough money to keep it running, I think, because it did close down. But now it's free, so you should enjoy it. And likewise with the books. In my opinion, these are good books worth reading. So check out all the other authors featured in the Intergalactic Medicine Show. Get A War of Gifts or Ender's Game or Ender's Shadow from your local library. You will not regret it.